Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel, and in this episode I'm going to be covering the tactic in property that is known as BRR, Buy, Refurbish and Refinance. But before I jump into that, if you're interested in finding out more about property, investment and mindset, make sure to smash the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and of course it would help me massively if you can smash the like button as well for the YouTube algorithm. So let's jump in. So before we start covering the specifics and how you can take advantage of this, we need to cover what is it in the first place. Well, BRR is not so much a property investment strategy, it is a tactic that you apply to a strategy. So what we basically have is this buy to let, okay? I again am not an artist, as you can probably tell, but this is your bread and butter buy to let property where you're gonna have Jack and Sally live in here, they're happy tenants, and essentially this is going to be where you are buying a house, refurbishing it, refinancing it, and of course renting it out typically to a young family. But the whole aim of this is how you're adding value to the property. So in my previous videos I would have covered that it's when you buy a property that you make your money, not when you sell it, not when you refinance in it. And that's true when you're aiming for below market value property. See, there's two main ways of making money in property. One of them is at the purchase price to get a discount, and one of them is on the refurbishment of the property. Okay, so you are adding value for every pound that you put into the property. And this is known as BRR, or buy, refurbish and refinance. And later on in this video I am going to break down typical figures of what this would look like. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this. So there's the basic way and the advanced way. The most typical way, which most of you will want to start with, is you've got something like your 2 or 3 bed property. I'm not going to try and draw it out, that's as advanced as it gets, okay? And what you're going to see is, you know what, it might need, I don't know, down here needs a new kitchen, okay? Maybe up here it needs a new bathroom. And what you're likely to be doing here is maybe going in and spending usually between £5,000 and £20,000 on the refurbishment. And what you're trying to do, or what I like to say, is you're trying to turn a house into somebody's home, okay? And you want it to make that safe environment, and that visual credibility that you're adding to the property adds the value, because ultimately the value of the property is in the eye of the beholder. But you also have objective RICS surveys and end values of this. But ultimately, if you're making a house that not many people would want to live in, it's a bit stinky, it looks a bit rubbish, and now somebody wants to make it their home, somebody's going to be able to willingly pay a decent rent on that, so you're going to get a return. And ultimately, in your refurbishment, you're trying to make sure that somebody is going to be able to rent at a decent market or slightly above market value if it's a newly refurbished property, so you're getting the best refinance. Now, when you go a bit more advanced, and I'll give a worked example of this actually so you can understand it, I'll come back to that in a moment, you can start thinking a little bit more than just a refurbishment. So what we have right now is a end of terrace. There are other properties here and onwards. Wow, now that I can see my drawing, it really is bad. But what this is at the moment we have this kind of weird property, and this is in Manchester that we're buying right now. And you see like a door there. Oh my God, it's getting worse and worse. That's the door. And then over here you have something that's like that, and it's just bricked up, but you can tell a door used to be there, right? So this is the property that we have bought for £73,000. It needs a complete refurb. Now, with some further research into this, we found out that this property used to be 2 properties and a post office. Small properties and a post office, granted. But instead of just going in and tightening it up, adding 15, 20, probably 25 grand on this one because it needs a lot of work, and then getting the end value of, realistically, we're talking about 100,000, 120,000 for that big property. What we can do is go in there, buy this, refurbish it by splitting it down the middle, breaking those bricks apart, putting another door on there, maybe moving the windows around on there, and actually spend 50,000 on it. Say we're all in at 75, and again, ignoring fees for now to make this simple, we're in at £125,000 and we're going to have two properties now with, they're going to be slightly smaller, a rough valuation of £95,000 per property. Okay, so now we've got £180,000 worth of properties for a more advanced version of buy, refurbish, refinance. So again, I'm going to go through a worked example of this, but I want to cover a couple more things. So first of all, what value areas does this work? Typically, where are we? Typically, what we're looking for is values up to around £150,000. Now again, does it work in higher value areas? If you're south of, let's say, Birmingham, getting an end value of 150,000 is going to be pretty difficult. You know, when you're looking at 3-bed mid-terrace properties for £300,000, it still works. But remember, the whole idea of a buy-to-let, if you've watched my other videos, and specifically with buy, refurbish, refinance, is number one, you want to minimize the cash left in, and you want to maximize the return on capital employed. And what I'll do is I'll put a couple of links below of previous videos where I'm covering ROCE in particular, because I don't want to deep dive into this video. Okay, so that is where we're looking. And when you get up to certain values with mortgages, and this is going to rely on getting a mortgage, you're going to have around 75% loan to value. But the thing that you need to be worried about is something known as a stress test. Okay, and a stress test is all around rental coverage. And rental coverage is how much does the rent coming in cover the mortgage. Now, unless you're going to end up having like £3,000 rents for the £400,000 property, which is very unlikely down south, you are not going to get that coverage. So you are not going to get 75% loan to value. It could still be an exceptional property, by the way, because you have great capital growth down south, typically more than up north, although last few years that's been a bit different. But you are not going to get your desired loan to value. So the sweet spot of what we're looking at is an end value of between 100 and a maximum of £150,000. And by the way, a few people commented on my last video saying, hey, I live in London, prices are ridiculous. Is it okay to invest further afield? And the answer is absolutely yes, as long as you have what is known as a great power team local to you. So a deal sourcer, somebody to do the refurbs and the letting. And if you've got a great deal source or a deal packager, which is what we do in our business, they should cover all of that for you. So you can definitely invest further afield, and you want to find that sweet spot to get you moving, get hard working, and get your money working hard for you. So before I go into a worked example, the last thing I want to make you aware of is the 6-month rule. So first of all, the first thing you need to know about the 6-month rule is there's no such thing as a 6-month rule. People naturally call it the 6-month rule, but there are no rules around it being 6 months. Okay. Let's just go back a step. What is the 6-month rule? The 6-month rule is advice given by the Bank of England and some other advisors to banks to say that maybe you shouldn't allow people to refinance onto any value within a 6-month period. So you can refinance, but if it's done within 6 months, they're going to base it on what you've purchased it at. Now, first of all, why did they do this? The reason why is people were getting some insane prices in the last recession. Let's say your house is worth 100,000. But you know, everything's gone tits up in this, and then they go, you know what, I'll buy it from you tomorrow at 50,000. And you had two things going on. First of all, you had Mortgage Express, who is no longer doing same-day refinances, so you could literally buy it for 50,000 and refinance at the 100,000 the same day, getting all of your money back and more. Or people would put it on the open market and sell it the next day for 80,000 to get a quick sale, and somebody would be buying them. So you're making a massive margin on people's motivations, which, by the way, is absolutely fine if you do it ethically. It's just a lot of people weren't, and they were taking advantage of those loopholes. So there are no set rules around it. It's just advice. But the reason that you need to take notice of this advice is everyone takes it. There are not many lenders that don't implement this advice, and therefore the advice kind of does become the rule. So let's go through a worked example. So if we've got, let's just go for a basic buy-to-let property, okay? We're gonna go for it. We're drawing the house. Okay, we've got happy people here in this house. It's a buy-to-let, it's a 3-bed, it's got a nice little garden with some bushes. Okay, I'm not gonna do it again. So we've got this buy-to-let, okay? Now again, let's say it's listed at £90,000. Let's change this to black so I'm not writing in red. So it's listed at 90,000, but we want to get a decent price. You know, remember, rule number 1 is always try to get a discount on the property. So you're going to purchase it and put in the offer of 80,000 and it is accepted. Woohoo! Okay, so option 1 is you can buy it with a mortgage, which is great, or you can buy it with cash. If you've got the cash, you're going to be able to negotiate a better price because a mortgage is going to take you anywhere between 4 and 8 weeks. A cash purchase, the quickest one we have ever done is 2 days, but typically 2 to 4 weeks, okay? Because you can expedite the process and you're not having the lenders slowing you down, especially with what's going on in the world, getting surveys and getting banks booked in. They have got a big backlog. So we purchased this property. We're going to ignore the fact whether we're buying it mortgage or cash, the real cost of the mortgage. So the 2 big things are, number 1, the survey. They charge whatever they want. You need to make sure you understand that because they are going to suffer it in the cost. And of course, the early redemption charges, okay, or the ERC, early redemption charge. So what this is normally it's within 2 years. If you end up changing mortgage or you refinance within that, you do pay a penalty. So make sure if you're using a good broker to make sure they are aware of your outcome and what you're going to be doing. So they find somebody that might cost a little bit more on the monthly charge, but you're not getting any early redemption charges. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to go for, let's say, probably 3,500. This 3,500 is going to cover stamp and legals, give or take. And again, these are rough numbers. It's more as an example on here. So we've got your purchase there, your stamp duty and legals as the next one. And then let's say a refurbishment on this property of £10,000. Okay. So fairly standard refurbishment of a buy-to-let property. Might be a bit more, might be a bit less, dependent on where you are. But the main thing is, again, we are not working out if we bought it cash or mortgage right now. We're going to be focusing on the refinance, okay? So that's 80, 90, 93, 500. If we're adding all of that up. So 93,500. That's cash in, okay? So let's just move this over. But let's say by doing that refurbishment of the £10,000, we've added a bit of value in that. So let's say we're in for 93, but because we put that money, again, made up on this, the new value of this property, now that we've made a house a home, is £120,000. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to refinance that. We're going to go to the Mr. Banker and just say, hey, I've done up this property. I think it's lovely. Here's 3 properties. And by the way, do present some sort of pack to evidence why you think it's worth it. But remember, whilst it's a bank doing it, it's a human being coming out and doing the valuation. So convince them, make them feel good. There's 3 properties on the street that are valued at £120,000. I think it's worth 120. They'll come out and go, yes, I agree with you, sir. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a mortgage. Typically, this will be at 75% LTV. That means loan to value, which means 75% of what they think the value is, they are going to give back to you. 75% of 120,000 is £90,000. Okay, so what we're looking at here is we put in 93,500, we've got back £90,000, which means the cash left in the deal is £3,500. Okay, that would be a pretty insane deal. Now, the question is, should you refinance and get all of your money out? Well, that used to be the goal for a lot of investors. Personally, I don't really get obsessed about that. I don't care about how much money I'm leaving in. I'm obsessed about the return on capital employed, i.e., if I am leaving money in a deal, which I will, by the way, I'll usually leave 10, 15,000 pounds in a deal if it's a good one. What return am I getting on that capital left in? So the main thing that you need to consider is the ROCE, what you can get on it, and how you can build up your portfolio. And remember, it's not about what you achieve in the next 6 months, it's what you can achieve in the next 6 years. And you want to plan out your legacy plan so you're not rushing this. You're not trying to become a millionaire overnight. And eventually, if you chip away at this over the long term, you can stop working hard for your money and your money can start working hard for you. So I hope you've got massive value from this video. If you have, please do hit the like button, leave a comment below. I'll reply to every single one, and it just massively helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. It pushes the video further, which means I could help other people and educate them and hopefully grow my channel at the same time. And with that in mind, with the growth of the channel, if you're not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you are notified on the next video coming up.